Hi, everybody.
Hello there.
I'm Jerry.
And I'm Linda, and this is Gizmo.
We're the Village's Newcomers. Today we want to show you a video step by step of how we did something that was pretty important to us. We had our first granddaughter a few years back, and we decided to use our woodworking skills to make her a box. Here is the box that we made for our one and only granddaughter. And we made it with a tray. It's a maple box with a black cherry top. And you can see it has hardware. It has a brass chain, brass hinges. And we make a box for each one of our grandchildren. But for this box, we decided to document it so that all the grandchildren can see where these boxes came from. It takes me about 15 hours to build that box and to sand it and to get it ready for Linda. And then she takes it.
And I put tung oil on it, and I put poly on it, and I also put leather down the bottom of the boxes inside the tray, and just kind of check over everything, make sure it's nice and neat before we put it up for display.
We had probably 300 of these before we moved to Florida that we made. And we sold them in craft fairs.
Yeah.
And we sold them through a couple of little boutiques. And we're left with about 24, I guess, that we still have here in the house. If you had visited our home in Indiana 5 years ago, you would have thought we needed an intervention. We had so many boxes. It was like, hey, man, you got a problem with these boxes. But for this one, and we've made so many, we wanted to document it, and we made a little book. It's called Grandma and Grandpa in the Workshop, a step-by-step building a box for Arlie. And Arlie is, of course, our little granddaughter. And so we're going to let you take a look inside this book with us, and I hope you like it. And that's us standing in front of our workshop back in Indiana. I'll be reading along on this book, and feel free to stop anytime you want a closer look at our setup or the process. But this is Arlie's box, and we're building the box you'll see in this book for our granddaughter Arlie. This keepsake box took us about 2 weeks to build. It took 500 sanding strokes and around 231 saw cuts. It was a pleasure to build for her, and we hope she'll keep it always. Our children and now our grandchildren are precious to us, and we wanted to show the process and make something special for her at the same time. We hope you'll enjoy our little book, and we hope that someday Arlie will love her box. We always looked for lumber everywhere we went. We would try to find new and exciting boards to use for our projects. I'd select a piece of beautiful black cherry wood for Arlie's box. I cut a piece long enough to make the box, and if the board was too thick, I'd plane it down to the correct thickness. The jet sander removes the planer marks. I edged the boards on my unisaw, squared off the ends, and measured and marked the box bottom. Once I cut the groove, I could start building the box. My nickname should be Sandy. I sure do a lot of sanding. I cut the sides of the box, and the opposite sides must be exactly the same length. Grandma likes our boxes to be fancy, so I marked the legs on this one. And I used a special jig to cut the ends of each one to 45 degrees. Then I cut out the round shapes for the legs. Here the shape of each leg has been cut out, and I sanded to the line very carefully. After that, I use a router to make sure each side perfectly matches the other. Then, of course, there's more sanding. When I got it very smooth, it's time to tape it all together to measure and cut the bottom. The 4 sides are taped together and the bottom's measured and it's cut on the miter saw. Then I test fit the bottom before gluing it all together. I carefully brushed on Titebond trim and molding glue. And after measuring from corner to corner, making sure the box is square, I use ratchet clamps to hold it together tightly while the glue dries overnight. Overnight, the box glue set up and it's time to glue the top on the box. I used part of the same board. After sanding it with 80, 120, 220, 320, and 400 grit sandpaper, the top was very, very smooth. The inside surface is sanded now, and the top can be sanded after the box is built. Glue is applied to the top edge of the box and the lid is put on. Glue is the only thing that bonds the top to the box, so we put it in a special press. It's tightened and left overnight so the glue will cure and the wood bonds together. After removing the box from the press, excess wood is cut off with a bandsaw and a flush trim router bit's used to cut the top flush with the sides of the box. We like to use splines to decorate and strengthen our boxes, and I use splines on the corners. I measure where each one will go and carefully mark the spot on the box. Then I use a special homemade jig to cut holes for each spline. This box needs 16 splines. Lots of sanding is involved in the making of every box. Mitered joints are strong, but since we don't use screws or nails, we put splines in the box corners. They give the box strength and beauty. Grandma picks out some pretty Afromosia splines to contrast with the black cherry box. They're placed in the holes that I carefully cut, and Titebond glue will hold them in place forever. After the last one is glued in, the box is set aside so the glue can dry. Grandma's a big help in the shop. I couldn't do it without her. Once the splines dry, they need to be trimmed. The Shopfox bandsaw cuts them off. Next, they're sanded smooth. The corners are then rounded off with the router, and guess what? That's right, more sanding. Look at all of our sanders. We use 6 different grits to make the boxes as smooth as Arlie's bottom. The box is now ready to cut the lid, and this will be a very important part of the project. Cutting off the top is tricky business. If it's not done correctly, the lid will not fit. The box is marked, the fence is set, and the 2 long sides are cut. Shims are then taped into the saw cut, and then the sides are carefully cut. A very thin strip of wood needs to be removed with a sharp chisel. And once removed, the lid should fit perfectly. Now we have a functional box. The inside edges of the box and lid are slightly rounded to make sure it feels good to the touch. More sanding is done to remove any splinters or saw marks. Then I cut a strip of cherry from the original board to make runners for a tray that I'll build later. After cutting and sanding the runners, I measure for perfect placement. Some glue and a couple of pin nails secure the runners in the box. The rails are in, and it's time to make a tray to sit on them. I selected special wood for the tray. Arlie's daddy carried this board from Peru, South America. A 1/4-inch groove is cut to hold the bottom. The board is divided into 4 parts for the tray. The sides of the box are sanded smooth. A 45-degree angle is cut into both ends of each side. Now the pieces are measured and taped together for a dado to be cut for the tray dividers. Careful measuring must be done. The sides of the tray have been measured and cut, and they're ready to put together. The plywood bottom's measured and cut, and then it's sanded and put together for a test fit. Glue is brushed under the edges. Once glued together, it's measured diagonally from both directions to make sure it's square. Then the tray is clamped together and left to dry overnight. Splines are one of the secret ingredients that make our boxes so special. We cut the holes with a special jig and then cut little triangle biscuits on the bandsaw. Once glued, they make the tray much stronger and beautiful. Next, we apply Titebond molding and trim glue to the tray and to the splines. They are then inserted into the tray. After that, the tray is set aside to dry. Just like we did when applying splines in the box, they'll be trimmed off and sanded smooth. The splines are glued in. Now time to measure, cut, and fit in the dividers. After measuring, a groove must be cut in each piece. They have time to lock together. In the next step, I will round the top edge to make it pleasing to look at and easy to lift out of the tray. I wanted to make the dividers on the tray curved for little fingers, and I used a template to draw in an arch and then carefully cut it out on the bandsaw. Some sanding and the parts of the tray were ready. Next was a very important step. The hinges had to be installed. This was a difficult part of the project. The hinges were measured and the box was marked. Their placement is very important. The router is used to cut small slots in the box and the lid for the hinges. A little sanding completes the cutout for the hinges. The router fence is adjusted to cut mortises for the hinges after careful measuring. The router bit cuts a recess for the hinges that will be put in the lid. The fence has to be moved for the inside of the hinge. The mortises are cut into the bottom of the box. Like we did for the lid, we have to cut both sides of the box bottom. A little finish sanding before the hinge is installed. Screws are installed to secure the hinges. Grandma helps install the hinges. The hinges are in. I sand and sand. Our boxes must be smooth. Then we blow out all the sawdust. All the edges are smooth and the box itself is ready for Grandma's special touch. She makes sure all of our boxes look great. Now we have to finish building a tray for all of Arlie's treasures. The tray has been glued together and sanded. And next I put the dividers in and round off the top to make it look pretty and to fit little fingers. Splines are cut flush and sanded smooth. The tray is finished. Here's where the magic takes place. This is where Grandma makes our projects beautiful. If I missed any spots, she sands them down a little and she removes any leftover sawdust. Her first coats are done with tung oil, which she hand rubs into the wood. She applies tung oil very carefully. We don't want any runs or missed spots. In between coats, she rubs the entire box lightly with steel wool. Once she has applied it on the box and tray, both will need a day or two to dry. She will repeat that process 3 or 4 more times. Most of our boxes have many coats of hand-rubbed finish. We do not stain or color our boxes. The beautiful colors you see are the wood itself. You can see in the picture that both Grandma and Grandpa have signed this special box that's going to be given to Arlie Rose, our first granddaughter. Grandma measures the box and tray very carefully. She uses top quality leather in each box. Leather like this is hard to get, so she has to be very careful. After cutting the leather, she sprays adhesive onto it and carefully presses it into the box. She will repeat the process with the tray. The nice leather and attention to detail make our boxes special. This one is going to a special young lady, so it has to be perfect. This special box will have a butterfly clasp. First, starter holes are made for the tiny screws. Just like the screw holes on the inside, they are to prevent them from breaking off. The clasp adds a lovely touch to Arlie's box. Next, pads are put on the bottom to keep the box from scratching furniture. This baby is finished. The box is 11 inches long, 7 inches wide, and about 7 inches tall. It's made of black cherry from the woods of southern Indiana. The splines are really special. As mentioned earlier, Arlie's daddy found that board when he was in South America with President Obama. He brought it home and gave it to Grandpa. Grandma and Grandpa wonder what treasures Arlie will put into her beautiful box. The leather is in and looks great. Next, I drill holes for the screws that will hold in the chain. The chain keeps the lid from flopping open. Holes are drilled because cherry is a very hard wood and screws can break off without a pre-drilled hole. I say bad things when that happens. The chain is measured and cut, then the screws are installed to hold it in place. It looks great. After a lot of time and work, the inside of the box is finished. That's a picture of Grandma's finishing station. She keeps all of her supplies there, and you can see some of our family photos in the background. Here are some of the tools we used in building this box. We left them all behind when we moved to Florida. Building Arlie's box took a long time, but it was a labor of love.
We hope you like that step-by-step book of Arlie's box.
Yeah, it was a good look at my old wood shop. Man, makes me sad. I sold all those tools. 3 table saws, 5 routers. I had a drill press. I had a lathe. I had a drum sander. I had 3 shop vacuum systems in there. You know, we had it all. Still, though, it's not as good as you can use here at the Village's Wood Shop,
Right.
which I am a member. Although I do visit the wood shop here and I do use it, it's not really for anyone wanting to have a business like making boxes or selling things. It's more for personal hobby use. And a lot of good is done there through donations to Toys for Tots or charities or Christmas presents for kids and whatnot. But we made this book back in 2017, and we wanted to document that so that our grandkids would have this book in the future to realize that a lot of love and hard work went into these boxes. Please hit that subscribe button, and we'll try to bring you more and more things that we do and having fun with here in Florida.
Until next time.
See you when you get here.